I just constantly look at research, talk to people that, hey, do more research on a much higher level than I ever could imagine, reaching out to them saying, hey, what do you think about this? This is what I'm thinking about. This makes sense. And just bouncing ideas off of people. And that's how my business kind of established and grew.
I go back to like, yes, it's great for visibility. It's great for marketing, but you're chasing a trend that you're not ready for. And so it's okay to like just use your name at first. Like you don't need to chase SEO yet. You still need to make sure that you're putting the right stuff on the internet, because even if you delete it, it's still going to be there. So make sure you know your stuff. You know what I mean? So that got me. Welcome back to season 2, Hot Tea with Uma and Bree, where we spill the real on entrepreneurship, business building, and the decisions founders have to make when the internet is constantly telling you to pivot. So today we're talking about something almost every founder struggles with at some point: owning your niche versus chasing trends maybe that are happening online. Social media moves fast, industries evolve, and it can feel like everyone around you is suddenly an expert in all the new things, right? But does following every trend actually help your business grow, or does it dilute what makes you credible in the first place? So let's get right into it, Uma. I'm excited to be back for this season.
Likewise, Bree. It's been a minute. It feels like it's been a minute, but then it really hasn't.
Yeah. I mean,
you know how that goes.
I feel like last season went really fast, and then we took a little bit of a break for the holidays, and now we're back into things. So, you know, that's how business works. And I think this season is going to be so much better. Like we're talking about things like this, such as a niche. And you guys know, like we've talked about our niches before and like what we get into. So I want to kind of talk about like how clarity, in my opinion, really does bring the right audience. Because at least for me, when I was first starting out with like building our business, it was kind of like a catch-all, right? Like kind of bringing in a lot of different types of people. And you think that like being broad with your practice creates more opportunity. And in some cases it does. However, I don't know. I feel like it does kind of, at least at some point in time, create a little bit of confusion for people because they don't quite know like what exactly you're an expert in, right? Like you're a jack of all trades, but like a master of none in some cases. Yeah. So I don't know. What are your thoughts on like locking in a niche? And for you, what was the moment where you realized like that clarity of the niche actually matters more than appealing to everybody?
Yeah, I think for me, honestly, I was very niched. Unintentionally, because when I first got into the scene, my first business that I established was 180. And so even just the name in itself, nutrition and fitness, it was about what I was just immersed in at the time and primarily passionate about at the time. So it was really working with bodybuilders, powerlifters, strength focused individuals. And that's just what people knew about me. They're like, oh, it's the dietitian that does that. And that was new. That wasn't anything they really heard about. And so for me, it actually really worked out well. But interestingly enough, I had so many people that wanted to work with me that didn't look like a bodybuilder or lift like a power lifter. And so I kept getting people asking, hey, do you help regular people? Or do you help with weight management? And I'm like, yeah, of course I do.
Yep.
But that's not what my marketing and what my messaging was, right? So I do think that it really depends on who you want to work with. I mean, you can be niche and say, okay, I'm going to be the go-to expert for XYZ, and really allow yourself to stand out and be in your own lane. Or you can kind of just be what we call like a generalist, and maybe you haven't really figured out exactly what your passion is, or you have multiple areas that you're passionate about and you don't want to limit yourself. You just have to be careful in that situation, because you could get busy very quickly. And then maybe those other people that you really want to work with maybe become more knowledgeable in a specific area or niche. You may not have enough room to serve those people and really help them the way you want to. So I could see it going both ways. For me, though, I don't think I would have changed a thing, because like I said, sports nutrition then was primarily endurance athletes. That's it. Like that's I mean, and I tell you, I did my research.
Yeah.
Even in the field, I didn't know anybody that was doing what I was doing.
Yep.
So it was really neat to be able to just kind of figure it out on my own, build systems, build programs. And till this day, I still work with those people. What about you?
Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, so when we started out, I guess when I was just getting into nutrition, like the very beginning of like thinking about becoming a nutrition professional and like going through the schooling and stuff, I was like, let's look at all the things, right? Let's experience all the things. I mean, I ended up doing a clinical program, exposed me to a lot of different types of nutrition specialties, should I say. And I was very open to doing a lot of things. But when we started our business, we did start more niche as well because it started as a meal prep company.
Mm,
And that was before I even became a dietitian, but it was specifically for professional athletes. And like
yeah.
you, I already knew that for sure I wanted to do. But as I was going through the extra schooling, it was like, oh, like maybe I'll, open it up
Yeah.
and like have more people, especially as we started getting requests like yours, where it was like, oh, do you
Hmm.
have wellness individual? Do you take wellness individuals as well? And I don't know, this is probably going to be something that other people don't agree with, but I think that when you're starting out, when you're starting out, before you actually start your business,
Yeah.
that is the time to be more open, right? When you
Hmm.
are looking at, exploring different options. I think once you start your business, I don't know. I'm leaning on the side of going in the niche direction because
Yeah.
you're able to have, more of an expertise, right? So that means
Yeah.
that you took the time, you learned about all these different types of areas of nutrition that you like or don't like. And now you're at a point where you can specialize in your knowledge, right?
Hmm.
And once you're specializing in your knowledge, then you go start the business. I know a lot of people aren't going to agree with that, but I think that helps for developing more knowledge in a specific area and being able to price yourself in the right way. Because I think a lot of things that I hear, at least in the field now, is, oh, I specialize in this area, but I don't feel like I know enough. So I don't feel like
Yeah,
I can
man.
charge, like what I want to charge. So it's almost like, well, then
Yeah.
just wait to specialize and wait to do that if you don't feel comfortable enough to charge for your knowledge. I don't know. I don't
I
know,
agree.
but
I think times have changed too, specifically in our field, because when I became a dietitian many, 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 many years ago, the common flow of things was you finish your program. Maybe you did a coordinated program or, standard, did finish your internship. And then the kind of rule of thumb was get some clinical experience before you branch out into something else. And the reason for
Mhm.
that too is just because that was mainly what was available. It wasn't,
Yeah.
you didn't get a bunch of private practice wasn't a thing like it is now,
Right,
right?
right.
So those opportunities just weren't there. And I think that kind of goes to your point of having more exposure, knowing more about different populations,
Mhm.
disease states, all those different things to see, hey, do I want to specialize in,
Yep.
kidney health, cardiac health, whatever it is.
Mhm.
And you just don't see that anymore. Now it's
Yep.
graduate and you can join a practice. And so I
Mhm.
feel like that's such a good point because there's no need to rush. Also, social media, looking at other people that have maybe done this for a really long time, folks.
Mhm.
I think it's easy to be like, oh, I want to do exactly what they're doing. I love that. I'm going to do it too. And you got to realize that they had a journey, they've had experience, they have the ability to specialize in what they're doing because they have the experience. So I agree
Mhm.
with that. It's not there just shouldn't be a quick route to anything that you really want to be an expert in. That's just not how it works.
Yeah, man. And you know what? Like you mentioned social media, and I think that really takes us to like our next point in all of this. Like, I think with a niche, yes, it's going to make you more marketable. Like, you will likely get more opportunities,
Hmm.
especially once you have nailed that down. Because as you're marketing yourself, you can position yourself as an expert in certain areas. So, yes, like it does bring all of that type of stuff, so marketing or whatever, and even referrals. But, you know, I think, like you said, with social media, there's a bit of a trap there, right?
Big
Because
trap.
the internet can create this like false sense of urgency to make you feel like you're missing the mark and you're not
Mhm.
keeping up with the Joneses and all these types of things. And it feels like, as you're watching, right? Because you end up watching other people, you feel like maybe you're falling behind in trends or you're falling behind just in general in your
Yeah.
business. But like, you're not. You can take your time in figuring out what exactly you want to do, and then you can market yourself the way that you really want to market once you've developed exactly, your expertise or whatever. But I don't know, what are some trends that you have seen people jump on maybe too quickly in our industry?
Goodness gracious. There's a lot. I mean, I think I've already alluded to the fact of like wanting to be your own boss right
Mm.
away. Like
Yeah.
it almost seems as though like working for someone else is just like, oh no.
Yeah.
Um, but I can't tell you like how many the reason why I feel as though I'm in the position I am and I would consider myself successful in entrepreneurship is because of the fact that I've had opportunities to learn from others in their businesses.
Mhm.
And a lot of times I was like, "Oh, I could see myself doing this, but this is what I would do differently."
Yeah.
Or I really like what this specific individual is doing with XYZ. So I feel like that is such a huge trend is I want to have my own business right now. I've
Yeah.
had 1 to 2 years of experience as a dietitian. No shade to anybody, but you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying, keeping it real. And
Yeah.
now I want to be an entrepreneur. And there's nothing wrong with having that desire, but just know that if you really want to do it well, it's good. It's okay to work for other people. So I
Mm.
think that's a trend. I think other things I've seen is essentially just wanting to like dive into media. I mean, there's just so many different things. And
Mhm.
so again, not to say that any of these things are bad, but
Right.
I do think that social media is such a huge driving factor for that pull and that tug for especially younger dietitians to feel like they've got to do it right away.
Yeah.
And some people will be very successful at that. I feel
Mhm.
like there are some natural born leaders that that's just
Mhm.
what they're supposed to do, right?
Yes. I agree.
But there's also a lot that aren't.
Mhm.
I can say for myself that like I looking back, I
Yeah.
would not do well if I
Mhm.
tried to do that. So
Mhm.
kudos to those of you that are doing that.
Yeah.
But don't burn yourself out either. What about
Mhm.
you?
That part. It's so funny, like, you said, not everybody's built for it. It's true.
Ah,
You gotta be real with yourself. But, there's one trend that I feel really kind of kicked off, and this is I don't know, it's probably been 10 years now, but everybody was doing blank dietitian on Instagram, right? It's like IBS dietitian
oh
or
yes. Super
kidney
niche.
dietitian, which is fine unless you just graduated and you really are
No
not like
experience.
the go-to dietitian for that specific thing, right? Like
Yeah.
that bothered me a little bit because it was like, all right, you just finished your school and now you've created this new Instagram page, right? And you have put your name as the blank dietitian, and I know where it came from, right? There were a lot of people that were following a particular dietitian who had a business that was recommending people do this. And again, I think it's a really good technique if you have experience in that area, not where like you're just coming
Yeah.
out of your internship and now you're all of a sudden this expert in this area. And that's why I go back to like, yes, it's great for visibility. It's great for marketing, but you're chasing a trend that you're not ready for. And
That's
so
that
it's
that part.
okay to like just use your name at first. Like you don't need to chase SEO yet. You still need to make sure that you're putting the right stuff on the internet because even if you delete it, it's still going to be there. So make sure you know your
Forevermore.
stuff. You know what I mean? So that got me.
Yeah, I really agree with that wholeheartedly. And it's really interesting too, because I think what sometimes people don't realize is once you put yourself out there, some people are really good with their words. That is something I have
Mhm.
learned. But then when it
Yeah.
really comes to the nitty-gritty and like offering your services, showcasing your services, having the business conversation from someone who says, "Hey, I see that you're the XYZ dietitian.
Yeah.
I have a proposition," and you don't
Yeah.
know what to do or say, that's a
Yep.
problem.
Yep.
So you got to think about that. It's not about what people see in this little highlight here and there and what you said and you got 100 likes. Like it's
Mhm.
about like turning that opportunity and that messaging into something that is going to be revenue building, and are you prepared for that? Just like
Yeah.
you said. So, yeah, I think I've definitely seen that trend too, and I've seen it a lot in our space, and I will add on to the internship part. Even after a year of practicing, I still don't feel as though anybody can say they're an expert. I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Mhm.
Um, you may be really not more knowledgeable in that area, but you're not an expert.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. I
Sorry.
mean, period. That's just the facts. And so and there's competency levels, and I think that goes along for any area, right? Like, obviously, we're
Yeah.
experts in the dietetic space, but this also pertains to those in the PT space, for those, in the strength and
Yeah.
conditioning space, like, same applies, just across the board. And I think when it comes to social media too, you kind of and this is, mind you, whether you're a newer, entrepreneur, or you've been in the game for a while, you still have to be careful with trends on social media, because you want to make sure that you position yourself as somebody that people can trust, right? And if you're always going back and forth doing different trends that, like,
Yeah.
don't align with the message that you're trying to put out there, then run the risk of losing credibility. So you still have to be careful, right? Like, and again, social media can be used as a great marketing tool, but you just have to be careful so that you don't confuse your audience with your
Yeah.
messaging that you're putting out there, right? So let's say you're a sports performance, professional, and you are somebody that starts off talking about whole body health and inclusivity or things like that, and then all of a sudden you switch it up and you're going the complete opposite direction. Now people are like, wait, I was following
Yeah.
you because I thought that you were expert in this area and, like, this is what you were all about, but
Yeah.
now I'm seeing something else. So just make sure once you start doing things, even if you're following a trend or doing something trendy, that it aligns with your brand and the messaging that you truly want to put out there.
Yeah, and I will say for like you and I think we should speak to that is that we are dual, right? So
Yep.
as we already mentioned, we started off specific in performance in different spaces and ways, and then we eventually grew and branched out into wellness. And so when
Mhm.
you have those situations, you can do dual messaging. You absolutely can,
Yes.
because now your brand shows it, people know it, but you have to be consistent in posting and sharing information about both, because if you're just really leaning on one versus the other, then people will be like, okay, is this person still doing this anymore? Are they still doing
Yep.
that? What do they really do? And so it's really important to make sure that if you want to take that dive and you say, okay, I do have a couple of passions and this is where I'm going to settle, you
Mhm.
really have a good strategy when it comes to the messaging for both of those areas.
Yeah.
So wanting to put that out there too, because that can cause confusion, but if done right, it shouldn't.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that brings us to our next, like, section of when pivoting actually makes sense, right? Because sometimes you are going to pivot in your practice. I think that's something that was a theme that we talked about a lot last season, still bringing it into this season of it's okay to make changes or have other
Yeah.
passions or whatever. Like, or again, if you end up bringing on clientele in an area that you didn't have before, it's okay, like, to make
Yeah.
those pivots and to be strategic about it. So it's not always bad when you make the pivot, but and it can also be actually very helpful if
Yeah.
you do it the right way, right? Like, if you intertwine the messaging of the pivot, the new opportunity that you're going after, or the new niche that you're going after,
Yeah.
especially if they come together well with what you're already doing, it
Right.
can be a bonus, right? So
Yeah.
just to give you guys an example, I've started posting more on like maternal health, but I also am like, hey, moms are high performers, right? A lot of us
Oh
are
yeah.
former athletes. Like we're going, going, going. We're moms that maybe are still desiring to be active, which goes along really well with a lot of my performance nutrition
Yeah.
stuff that I've been doing for a long time. So when you have something that meshes well together, you can have a really good pivot and still align with your audience. And you just have to make sure that your messaging is right. So I don't know. What about you? Like, what are some examples, I guess, maybe that you've had where like the pivot made sense and you were actually
Yeah.
able to blend both of them together?
I would say a lot of it for me would be like military first responders, their
Mm,
families, former athletes, or athletes that used to be, more elite, more even
yeah.
professional, and now they obviously no longer have those careers, and but they still are very active. Maybe they're doing, combat sports, and on a more recreational level. I mean, they're still
Yes.
performing, and they
Mhm.
a lot of times they have some challenges with kind of transitioning out of the former mindset they had once they were really high performers. So that's definitely a good example of how it still blends because I think sometimes in as sports dietitians, we get so locked into traditional sports, the traditional
Yes.
athlete, and we've got to think more performance because we're dealing with former athletes, we're dealing with first responders, we're dealing with their families. We're dealing with people that are now doing high rocks and all of these really,
Mhm.
really high intensity, like trendy things that are great.
Yeah.
So I have a lot of that coming through my practice. And so it
Mhm.
still applies. The messaging is still
Yeah.
the same.
I love that. I love that you brought that up because performance can cover so many different categories, right? Like
Yeah.
you can be performing, in the military, you can be performing at home, you can be performing in a recreational sport, or like you said, high rocks is huge right now. Like you're
Right.
seeing a lot of people going from like weekend warrior, high rocks,
Oh yeah.
professional athlete, high rocks. Like it's
Oh
crazy.
yeah.
So and you can intertwine that into your practice as long as it's something you have a passion for. I think that's the other thing.
Yeah.
Like, you have to
Yeah.
have a passion for it because whatever you try to pivot in, you're going to have to spend time diving into the research, diving into different resources to improve your
Hmm.
knowledge in that area. It's not just about making the pivot and just throwing stuff out on social media. Like, if you're going to make the
Yes.
pivot, really make it and intertwine it with what you're doing and spend the time to build up your knowledge in that. So that way when you do start sharing stuff online, it's legit stuff. Like it's not like you
Right.
just like pulled something out of the blue because you saw somebody else doing it on their Instagram or
Yes.
whatever. Like, don't do that, y'all. Like,
And that
we've
is an
talked about
example
that
of
before.
following trends, right? Like
Yes.
that's a great example of, oh, this is trendy now. I mean, I saw it with CrossFit. I saw it now we have High Rocks. And so yes, be knowledgeable in that, especially if you really haven't specifically to our area. Like if you really haven't dealt with anything outside of just traditional sports, it is different to a
Mhm.
degree. And so you had to make sure
Mhm.
that you know that. You've got to factor in like, okay, the mom that is doing high rocks, she's running her
Yeah.
kids around everywhere. So she may not be
Mhm.
eating enough. So
Right.
how do you tackle that? Right. You've got
Yep.
to think beyond the typical athlete. So yeah, you've got to immerse yourself in it before you toot your own horn and say, this is what I'm doing now. And this is who I'm
Yeah.
helping now.
Yeah, I love that. And that, I mean, what we're talking about, you guys, is essentially building your pivots with adjacent expertise, right? Like
Yes.
you are creating this natural extension of your current foundation. You're not just like throwing your foundation away. Like you have your foundation of what you focused on, maybe what you have a niche in, and you're just creating extensions of that. That's what we're talking about.
Right.
Because a lot of things do translate. So, but again,
Hmm.
making sure that you're building your knowledge in those areas. So, let's kind of talk about like building that knowledge and like strengthening your like niche specifically when you do kind of land on something for you. Like, what did you do? Like, did you think about solving a clear problem, and if so, what was that for you as you were kind of building out your business?
Ooh, that's such a great question. So for me, very quickly, I knew I was passionate about all of those different things, being not only a trainer, personal trainer, and working with people, but also going through a lot of those processes myself. So I competed in bodybuilding at a high level. Did powerlifting, try to dip and dabble in Olympic weightlifting, but didn't really do that. But still, it all is the same kind of
Yeah.
cluster. And so I was able to identify, there's a lot of XYZ going on, right? So in
Mhm.
bodybuilding, there's a lot of not so great practices, and I can see a lot of issues with disordered eating in this population. With powerlifting, I can see a lot of like yo-yo dieting just to make weight and try to be more competitive. And so that allowed me to say, I can
Mhm.
develop a program because I have the knowledge in both of these areas to really help these people that don't seem to be getting help in these areas so that they can have longevity and also first and foremost be healthy and not feel like going into another cycle of any of that is daunting.
Yeah.
So that was kind of my
Very good.
experience. And then, of course, increasing my knowledge. I always say never stop learning, never stop
Right.
growing. You are never all knowing and the expert. You always have room to grow. So I just constantly look at research, talk to people that, hey, do more research on a much higher level than I ever could imagine,
Yeah.
reaching out to them saying, hey, what do you think about this? This is what I'm thinking about this. This makes sense. And just bouncing ideas off of people. And that's how my business
Mhm.
kind of established and grew.
I love all of that. When you go through something yourself, I feel
Listen,
like that sparks something in you because that is the easiest way to one, identify a problem and then also identify the solutions to the problem, right?
yeah,
Like that is something that I believe a lot of expertises grow from is
right,
somebody having an experience or experiencing a problem, figuring out a solution that worked for them and then offering that solution up to other people, right? And
right,
saying, "Hey, this is what I went through. This
right,
is what I did. It worked really well. Here's the
right.
research to support it. Let me help you too," right? And the same thing
Yeah,
happened for us. I mean, we got into um sports performance meal prep simply because like we were athletes and we were like, why aren't there, meals that fit our at the time there weren't, there's a lot of stuff out
yeah,
there now, but at the time there wasn't. And then, moving forward into private practice, like, hey, can we create a one-stop shop for pro athletes that maybe don't
yeah,
have access to a team at this point in time or they are in transition, right? Can we provide them with a solution that is kind of an extension of their professional team? So,
yeah,
that, in my opinion, is how you really like build out your niche. And, like you said, continue to dive into research, continue to build out your knowledge because if you
right.
stop learning, you're going to feel stagnant. So, I agree with you. I think authority too is built on consistency, right? Going through making sure you're on top of the research so that your
Yeah,
messaging can align with what's legit out there, things
right.
like that.
Yeah,
So I
absolutely.
think there's lots that you can do when it comes to, building out your niche.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's one of those things too where it's like I would say that from that lived experience, I mean, you have like double credibility, right? Like you have the expertise and obviously knowing and being able to like ethically speak on those things, but then you have the lived experience. And so I know for me, a lot of my business was just kind of it was a blessing because it just came to me. They're like, "Yeah, I've seen you. You did this. Da, 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 da. I want to go to you. Oh, you actually have credentials too. So this is
Yeah.
a lot better than, some of the other people that I've seen." And so that's so important. If you have something that sparks your interest, because let's just face it, in our world, there even just with like different phases of life, becoming a mom, a dad, whatever it may
Mhm.
be, things change. And so just make sure that you really dive into what that is in addition to your lived experience. Okay, so like what are all the things that other people could also be going through with this phase of
Yeah.
life? Okay, this I've gotten into this new activity. Okay, so let me talk to the community. Let me
Yeah.
join a community of people and just kind of be
Mhm.
amongst them and learn from them and just talk to them and see what they like, what they don't like. And that's how you really can do really well in those areas when you expand.
Love that. Yeah. Well, you guys, I mean, we've shared a lot of things in today's pod. Obviously, starting out maybe a little more generalized, getting that experience. And then once you are ready to dive into building out your business and creating a niche audience, you can do
Yeah.
that. And even once you have decided on a niche, it's okay to pivot. It's okay to build out extensions of your foundation when you have adjacent expertise or adjacent passions. You can do those things. So there's lots of ways to do it. We'll talk more this season about, building out and scaling and stuff like that. We'll talk more about that later, but just know that a pivot is possible. Niches are great. We love them. Obviously, we are two people who have created niches and experiences based off our own lived experiences as well as expertise. So, lots of things that you can do there.
Yes, absolutely. So, y'all, that's the tea for today. Visibility isn't just about being seen, it's about creating opportunities for you that work to reach the right people in meaningful ways. Speaking engagements, media appearances, and podcast conversations can all become powerful growth channels when they align with your expertise and the impact you're trying to create. So if you enjoyed this episode, make sure you follow us on Instagram at Hot Tea with Uma and Bree, and subscribe to our YouTube channel and like or follow the podcast on your favorite listening platform so you never miss an episode, because we're going to have such good things to talk about this season. We're super excited. And if you want to keep these conversations going with our founders and professionals, with other founders and professionals, rather, come join our community.
Yay!
So that's our big surprise. We're launching the community this year, and we're so excited. In order for you to join, we have a link that's in our notes. And also go to our Instagram page, because we also have a link in our bio. But this is going to be such a great opportunity for you guys to connect with us in a deeper way. We have a lot of things planned, amazing resources, webinars, and we really want to hear from you and see what it is that you want to see in the community. Emphasis on the T. So thanks for listening to Hot Tea with Uma and Bree, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Hot
Cheers!
Tea. Cheers! Yeah.